Hello again, BSP fans. Thanks for tuning into episode 30 of the Black Swan Podcast. This is an extra special episode with Josh Jones, as he's the first repeat guest for our series. I think I was a lot more excited about it than Josh was when I mentioned it to him, but I thought it was worth noting. If you haven't listened to Josh's first conversation for the podcast, scroll way back to episode number 2 after listening now. It's a deep dive into Josh's development as a percussionist and some of his musical philosophies, so definitely worth listening to. Then have fun poking around some of our other episodes with educators and performers like Andrea Vinay, Matthew Lau, Joe W. Moore, and Anthony DiBartolo. And of course, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can get some instant gratification with future episodes. Okay, moving on. Some quick shameless self-promotion here. Not sure if I've mentioned it before, but our orchestral session video series is a great resource on our website and YouTube channel. Basically, a few years ago, we recorded Junior playing through a whole mess of accessory instruments, performing along to popular orchestral excerpts. It's a fun way to hear some contrasting tambourine, triangle, and castanet models in context with actual music you might be rehearsing or performing yourself. Super cool side note, we also recorded Josh Jones on a selection of snare drum excerpts, cycling through a variety of shell type sizes and strainer options. Even if you're not shopping for a new instrument right now, it's still awesome to hear Junior and Josh perform and explore some new techniques or inspiration. So visit www.blackswamp.com/orchestral-sessions or find the link in our show notes. So, since our last conversation, almost 2 years ago, a lot has been going on in Josh's life. Besides winning a new position with the Kansas City Symphony and getting married, Josh seems to be endlessly developing, producing, and presenting new resources for percussionists. In this conversation, we try to focus on a recent masterclass he presented at a TAPS seminar last fall called Acting Musical, but like most episodes, we fall into a maze of rabbit holes, which is no surprise in this case. Since I first met Josh 8 or more years ago, his constant enthusiasm and exceptional talent has been an ongoing inspiration for me. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Well, Josh, congratulations are in order for several things. First, welcome back to the podcast. You have the distinguished honor of being our first repeat guest on the show. So that alone it deserves some congratulations. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk again. Probably bigger congratulations in your mind is marriage within the last year or less.
Yep.
So how's that going so far? How's married life treating you?
It feels exactly the same, which is what we thought it would feel like. So it doesn't feel like anything's really different other than the label of being married.
Yeah, sure. Is she in Kansas City with you?
Yep. Fine. Yeah. This is the first time we've ever lived together.
Yeah.
Long distance is a trial.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, my wife and I mean, before we were married, I mean, we were always kind of in the same place at the same time, but I did a year of graduate school, kind of apart from her. And that was, I think we handled it fine. It was okay. So I'm always curious how people do handle kind of long distance relationships like that for extended periods. But seems like you guys handled it well.
Yeah, as well as we could.
Yeah, that's good.
Now we're in the same place, thank goodness. Finally.
All right. Which is Kansas City, and that's another obvious huge adjustment for you, kind of moving back to the States, new job, new gig, kind of a lot, sort of a whirlwind the last year or so, but it's all super exciting, man. We're happy for you.
Yeah, thanks. Also happy to just be here.
Right. So what I want to do today is not really talk about your backstory, I guess, because like I mentioned, we did, we had an interview a couple years ago or so, and really kind of dug into, how you got to where you are now. And I think if anybody that's listening knows kind of who Josh Jones is, and like knows your social media presence and like all your activities and stuff. So that's kind of what I want to do today, is talk about a few specific things.
Okay,
Yeah, if you're down with it.
I'm down.
uh, like for instance, I know the last several months or longer, you've been pretty active with a lot of online seminars that are happening kind of around the country. You have your own sort of online master classes that you're organizing and putting out there. Like I think you just had one last night, like either a Facebook or Instagram
Mhm.
kind of master class. So I want to talk a little bit kind of about some of those specific topics, I guess, and
Okay.
and then go from there. I got some other thoughts and questions, but see what kind of pops up. So I mean, the kind of one of the main things or topics I thought was interesting, you were involved in the TAPS, like the Ted Atcats percussion seminar last fall, I think, and
Yep.
you one of your topics was acting musical, which I thought was interesting, like how you and I don't really know a lot about the what you presented, but it just seemed interesting, like acting, obviously being musical, but sort of how you infuse that into either practice or performance, or kind of what the concept is, and what sort of how do you approach that.
So I'm actually going to be teaching that class again soon.
Okay.
Well, in the timeline of podcasts, it'll be on the 31st. So I don't know when this will come out,
The
but
31st of
January.
January. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So this will be like later February. So that whatever you're doing will have passed by now. But go ahead.
Something I had to learn was, I think before I started playing orchestral percussion, I was pretty naturally musical. I would just, play the way I felt, or play the way, because in church, kind of read the room and see, is this cymbal going to be too loud for people? Like if people are more like in a resting position, you don't want to overplay the cymbal. Shake everybody in their
Yeah.
seats.
Like
So
the whole
you learn. Yeah, you learn how people react to what you do, and how those reactions, I guess, not trigger, but guide you in how you're supposed to respond musically.
Yeah.
So when I started playing orchestral percussion, it was like, okay, here's some techniques that you can use to make those ideas and those feelings a lot more clearer, and a lot more accessible. But then college comes along, and then you start getting nervous about like, oh, you have to get a job and play perfect and blah, 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 blah. And
right.
not that my teachers promoted that very much, but it was more so the vibe and the, I guess not the social dynamic in percussion land was more like, oh, you have to play your audition rounds perfect. You have to play this specific way, way.
I do that all the time. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm a master at combining words while I'm talking, so I knew exactly what you were talking about. Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah.
And yeah, you had to play with this drum, with these mallets, and it was very regimented, and I didn't feel as free to express what I liked in the pieces. So a lot of my studies in college or outside of college were trying to regain that sense of wonder and freedom of expression that I had when I was younger. And I think if there's more ways to promote that type of creativity, and think of it more as like just guiding your own personal instincts and reactions, instead of completely curtailing them and playing a certain standard way and being like, just play it this way and then maybe wiggle around, instead of just like wiggle around, see what works, and then we can reel it in and be like, okay, that's a little cool, but it might be a little bit too loud. Okay, that's easier to do than training or trying to get out the stress.
Sure. Yeah. No, that I think, well, a couple of things that like reading the room, like one of the first points you made, and especially in I mean, your instances playing in church, or I kind of would feel the same way when I would play in a drum set, like in a coffee shop or like in a bar in a small setting. Like you don't want to, you have to sort of build a sense of musicality, like, or
Hmm.
still play. In my case, sometimes it was being able to play softly but still play intensely, like play with some intensity or still some drive, maybe not rushing, but just because you're playing, I mean, this is a whole nother conversation, but just because you're playing softly doesn't mean you're playing slower necessarily, or you're playing with
Yep.
less intensity. So I totally feel kind of like reading the room and approaching musicality that direction. But then, kind of at the end, you're talking about not getting loosey goosey with stuff, because like I think you have a really good point. I just a couple weeks ago I talked to Sean Tilburg about like audition process, and like he's got that down to science, man. He's like an audition ninja, and like how he kind of approaches that. So I think it's interesting to like be able to combine a little bit of um, like creativity with um, this that sort of regimented like approach that you're talking about with either excerpts or auditions and things like that. But then also you're learning pieces, you want to sort of honor the intent of whatever vibe piece you're playing or whatever solo you're playing. So is there ways that you kind of specifically address that then, like either any type of exercises or sort of additional thought process?
Yeah, I think the best way, like you said, is more of a you put yourself in situations where you're, I guess, forced to be musical or forced to adapt and be flexible.
Right.
I think the best way, or the ways that I found that worked for me and my students, are finding things that you already like a certain song, and playing exercises to that song, and not trying to fit them in, but trying to enjoy the song while playing the exercise.
Sure.
Because if you're playing, I don't know, if you're playing Mary Had a Little Lamb and you're playing your exercise like Slipknot, like that's not really gonna fit in
Right.
character wise.
Yeah.
Same thing if you're playing Slipknot and you're trying to play it like Mary Had a Little, like there's a certain way and a certain intent and emotional character that drives your movement and drives your creativity and your imagination.
Right.
And the more you expose yourself and allow yourself to make those instinctual choices, and then find out, oh, well, my instinct was to do this, but it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And then be on and be like, okay, so what will make it sound right? Then you learn how to adapt it. And I think the thing that helped me the most, I think it started 5 years ago, was trying to not make a difference between playing John Mayer's Clarity and playing Shostakovich. Like they're both music, and if I play Shostakovich as chill as playing, Clarity, then it's not like my practice or my intent will be more like serious,
Sure.
or like you don't want to overhype the fact that it's Shostakovich. Like, okay, play in time. You have to play in time when you play John Mayer. Okay, the rhythms have to be correct. Well, they also have to be correct in A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right.
Like, like, so not having that distinction helped me calm myself down whenever I learn new pieces, because I'm just learning new music. I'm not learning new music with the intent of making it perfect on every single note and making sure that the panel votes for me. Like,
Yeah. Right.
you add too much extra pressure and extra stress, which means you're not as free to make a decision or make an instinctual choice, because you're worried about how that choice is going to be perceived all the
Yeah.
time.
No, that's really interesting. You're sort of, I've had conversations outside of the podcast with some people about kind of taking those elements, like trying to think how to explain it. You're like not being, I guess, so mindful of what people are thinking or how
Mm-hmm.
something's going to be perceived. So you're almost like taking that part out of the equation, and then you're more free to kind of focus on the musicality. Or you already, like you're saying, you got to play right notes and right rhythms, and you got to play in time regardless. So maybe you have an opportunity to be a little more creative or be a little freer or not sort of stressed. Because I was looking, I'm going to try to get there. I was on your website. And we're already jumping ahead here a little bit because there's a couple things that you've touched on I wanted to talk about anyways. And there was like a kind of a Q&A section and on your website, like you were just sort of answering frequently asked questions or whatever. And one of them was like not taking some of this content too seriously, I guess, and sort of not hyping, like overhyping yourself or not like kind of like stressing yourself out. Is that pretty much what you're talking about right now, if I'm hearing you correctly?
I like I said, I think coming out of college, I had to deprogram myself from the whole stress of you need to win an audition so you have a job like as soon as possible. You have to play this way, like it. Yeah, and it kind of, it's so liberating because when you let go of the impossible task of playing perfect, then what else do you have? Well, do what you can to be as clear and as musical as possible. Sure. What can I do? I can practice with the metronome. That's a doable thing. Like it makes it a lot more attainable, and you stop trying to reach this unattainable thing. And just, at some point, if you're clear and musical, somebody's going to want to hire you at some point. As long as you do it consistently. That's the only caveat. You have to do it consistently.
Yeah. One other, like, just referring back to your website again, you have like these Spotify playlists, and that's what, I mean, you've already referenced it. And again, that was something I wanted to talk about. Like, there's Aha, Billy Joel, Dr. Rocket, Grover Washington, Jojo Mayer, like stuff. Like, how do you kind of, I mean, people can go to drummojo.com and find these existing playlists or obviously make their own like you're suggesting, but how did you kind of curate those playlists specifically?
I think one mistake people accidentally or aren't aware of that they're doing when they play to music is that they're not playing to the music. They're just making sure it's in time with the music.
Sure.
And it doesn't have the same flow or the same character of rhythm or sound quality. And they divorce their natural reaction to the song. Like if there's a song you just absolutely love and you still can't enjoy it while you're playing the simple exercise, then make it even simpler until you can get back to like, oh man, it's fun playing to this, instead of like, let me learn how to execute within this song. Like, it loses its intent, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I curate. I can't.
That's two. We'll keep a little tally here. Right, that's two. I already forgot what the first word was, so it doesn't matter.
First surfic, I think.
Right. Cool.
So I try to make it as Josh as possible, because my phone and my my external hard drive has so much music. I've collected every song that I ever had an emotional reaction to.
Yeah.
And some songs are like, oh, I must have been in some random mood because I can't ever remember what I felt like when I heard it. So I try to make it pretty varied, not just based on tempo, but based on, okay, is this happy? What kind of happy? Is it like happy rest or happy excitement or, something like that? There's always, sometimes the emotion is complex, which is something I had to learn late in my 20s.
Yeah.
So I try to curate it based on different emotional reactions that I would have, and something that made me feel energized or relaxed and things like that.
So this may be getting too specific, like, so you curated these playlists, you have a whole external drive full of music. Can you like sort it by emotion? Because I know I'm probably getting a little too logical about it. I guess it's supposed to be a little freer, but like for me, I would probably have at some point like a Google sheet or a spreadsheet that had all the music and then had all the emotions, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling happy today. What kind of happy? So you could kind of drill down and find these two, or is it I'm taking it too seriously right now, probably. Or like, how do you kind of organize it, I guess?
Well,
Like,
that's something, I think it's a balance, because it's like practicing. When you find a motion that works, you want to repeat it so that you remember it.
yeah, sure.
Um, and I think with certain things, at a certain point, you'll know what songs will trigger what emotion. But at the same time, if you as you keep listening to the same thing, it starts getting stale. And so you have to find a new thing, and then a new thing. And then once you've left it for a while, it's like it recharges itself. And
Yeah.
then you listen to it again, you're like, oh yeah, it felt like this the first time. But man, I think the way my brain works, I actually on my playlist I have calm, rap, what's another one? My practice list is either practice fast, practice slow, like that kind
Okay.
of thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Country. A
sure
lot of country. No, maybe not. I don't
I'm
know.
sure if I had the time and the patience, I could go through all of my music
Right.
and do that. I kind of wish if I had that knowledge back then, I would have had a better time of organizing it.
Right.
Because now it's like 60 days worth of music or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah. Well, I mean, time is another topic I had on my list here. So we'll just jump around, man. We're all over the board right now.
yeah.
Like, um, that is actually, like I said, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I've had conversations with a couple other of our artists and educators about, how they organize time. Obviously, um, you're newly married, you got a new job, you practice several hours a day, I'm assuming, but you're also into personal development. It was, what I would call it, like, um, putting this content online for your followers, basically kind of sharing this information. But also, I mean, you got tons of book suggestions, you got other videos and all this kind of content. Like, my question to other people is like, how do you sort of prioritize this, or how do you organize your time that you can hit all these things either a day or within the week or however? And I didn't preempt this question, so you're thinking, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot right now, but yeah, can you address kind of your time and how you organize it?
I think something I had to learn how to do was um, divorce music from like quote unquote real life.
Sure.
What are the most important things if I guess if music didn't exist, because music was always just a hobby for me. Like it wasn't ever anything serious or like a thing. It was just, oh, I like hitting stuff, so I'll just do that. But I think things that I usually try to prioritize is what do my wife, and my dog need to like not just exist in the world. Like
Sure.
what will provide us the most comfort and happiness or fulfillment. Um, so make sure I look at the groceries and make sure all the groceries. Okay, 3.
Three, ding.
Make sure the groceries are all in the fridge. If
Yeah.
we need to go shopping, then I need to start the grocery list, because
Sure.
that'll be something that I can do that takes some pressure off of my wife. Um, I make sure I get up in the morning and feed the dog and walk the dog and let her sleep, like
Yeah.
so she can rest, because I don't need as much sleep, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, you sound like a really nice guy, Josh. No, I honestly don't. I think. Sorry, I know they made a joke there, but like this, I think the same way with my wife. Sometimes I know those are just examples, but like, okay, what's going to take stress off of my wife? Like, and I'll use Christmas as an example. My wife loves Christmas, but the stress of Christmas shopping or organizing or like just family things, like kind of keeping all that stuff straight. Um, it wears on her, and then that it stresses her out, and by the time we get to December 25th or 24th, like, she's done with Christmas, she's tired. Like, we haven't even got to the big day yet. So yeah, I'm like, okay, what can I do? I do like Google lists, Google Sheets, and I like spreadsheets. So, okay, I'm going to keep track of all this stuff. Like, I think it's pretty interesting. Like, okay, what is going to kind of help you and your wife get down the road every day, and thinking about, okay, your wife needs more sleep, so you can get up and walk the dog, or you have a little bit more time here and there, and you can get groceries or focus on this other thing. So I think that's cool, man. Good job.
Yeah, I think also something that helps me, which is a thing that certain people will be like, man, I don't know how you work so much.
Yeah,
Uh, it's like, I, I don't try to put unnecessary deadlines on things that don't have deadlines.
sure.
Like things that have deadlines, bills. Okay, well, I can put those. Well, something my wife helped me do was put everything on an automatic pay, so I
Yeah,
didn't have to worry about another deadline.
right.
So that's one less thing I can think about. It's already, set up, so I can just do that. So I don't have to actively put time in there that could be used for something else. Okay, what's another thing that's more immediate? Okay, we need food, so I need to go shopping,
Yeah,
um, or order, delivery. So that's something that could take off some time. Um, what's another thing? And then after you figure out what the more immediate, like, okay, you got to do this so you have food, or so you meet some sort of deadline or something. Then it's more like, okay, what's the thing that I can do to work towards a goal that we have? Something we want to do is buy a house. So something I do every month is see how much money we can put into our house account, and I do that once a month, or sometimes twice if I get more master classes or something like that.
hmm,
That doesn't have a deadline either, but it's something that's on my mind to make time for at some point. It takes like 20 minutes. That's cool. And then it gets more detail where, like, okay, now I want to be able to practice. How much practice do I really need? How can I be efficient with that practice time so I'm not spending 3 hours to get 20 minutes done? Like,
yeah,
is 3 hours really going to get me what I want?
right.
Uh, yeah, so I try to organize my schedule. I don't even have really a schedule. It's more like I have a day, and if I don't really have deadlines, I really make sure I have or make time for self-care or taking care of the house or my wife or my dog.
Yeah,
If I don't have to do anything other than that, then I make sure I put time into that.
sure.
And other than that, I just try to organize it based on, okay, let me work on my book for 20 minutes or as long as I want or am feeling it, or
Yeah,
let me practice, or while I'm practicing, I can record a video and I don't have to really think about it. I can post it whenever, so I'm very fluid with time, and I try not to put any unnecessary details or deadlines in it if I don't have to.
yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Today's episode is brought to you by Primephonic, the streaming service designed for classical music. Primephonic is here to save classical music for the streaming era. The app features high-res audio, radio on demand, curated playlists, and podcasts with famous artists. Times are tough these days, but Primephonic pays classical musicians in a fair way, paying per second and not per track. This is a huge deal compared to the other services that only pay artists per song. The app features a massive catalog featuring some of our favorites here at the shop, like John Cage, Steve Reich, Evelyn Glennie, and Ivan Trevino. For a limited time, Black Swamp podcast listeners are getting 2 months free of Primephonic with the exclusive promo code Black Swamp. Visit the link in the show notes, enter the promo code, and you're good to go. Again, that promo code is Black Swamp, all caps and all one word. Primephonic, the streaming service designed for classical music.
Just stepping back for a second, you say self-care. I mean, that's more than brushing your teeth and taking a shower, I'm sure. Like what
Yeah.
like what kind of elements of self-care are we like? Can you just give me some examples? I mean, are you talking about uh reading a book, or reading a blog, or watching a movie, or meditating, or like what kind of self-care aspects are you talking about?
Um, I think it depends on the person, but I think some go-tos are, if you like reading, read a book, like
Yeah.
something to take your mind off of stuff to be concerned about.
Right.
The most thing, something to distract you, but not just, what do you call it? It's not just something my therapist taught me was you self-care has to be intentional. It can't just be passive. Like,
Sure.
okay, I'm sitting. Okay, but am I actually resting? Like, okay, well, I guess I'll sit down for 5 minutes. Well, sit down and for the purpose of resting, not just to sit. Reading for the purpose of enjoying the book, not just to distract you from a job.
Yeah.
So always the intent behind it.
Right.
Journaling is great. Taking a Epsom salt bath, getting a massage, maybe not right now because COVID.
Right.
Doing one of the crook massage things for your
Sure.
back. Um, Taking a walk. I love walking. That's something me and my wife try to do as often as we can because it's something like it's so easy to do. It gives you some exercise and you get outside with your
Yeah.
mask on
Right. Thank
and
you.
all that. So yeah, I think whatever you find enjoyment doing or a hobby is a great self-care thing.
Yeah.
Just something to take the edge off intentionally, not
Yeah.
just
Um, my my wife's super into movement, so I think that's like you mentioned going for a walk. If she doesn't walk for a day or move, like she'll get up early too, and do some yoga, do some stretching, maybe some like more strength or like high impact stuff, or just
Mhm.
go for a walk. Like that charges her battery, that fills her bucket, as she likes to say sometimes. Like, and if she doesn't do it for a day or two, then um she starts to feel it. Like I think what
Mhm.
you're talking about is just kind of this emotional like weight, or like the self-care aspect, like it starts to weigh on her. I'm kind of completely opposite. Like I just was as you're talking about these aspects of self-care and like doing something intentional and like almost routine, I think, point. um I've sort of realized this. What I do is I watch Star Trek, and
Mm.
and I've been it's a little embarrassing. It's sort of a guilty pleasure, and my entire family, I got two girls, and obviously my wife, and they make fun of me all the time. But I've gone through not the original series, which I'm sure I'll get to, but like Next Generation, and
Yeah.
then there's Deep Space Nine, and then I'm watching Voyager right now. Like I've gone like basically just binge it for the last year and a half, like every day. I'll try to watch an episode or whatever, and it is definitely like sort of this, I hate to say break from reality, especially over the last year, but like sort of this time where I can decompress a little bit. It's not stressful. The storylines are, it's not like watching Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
which are awesome, but it's like super stressful. So I can just kind of chill and relax and decompress and then almost like recharge in a sense. So
Mm.
yeah, I guess I didn't really consider that self-care until we were just talking about it right now. Like, um, so yeah, I encourage everybody, you don't have to watch Star Trek, but like to do something. You sort of did a victory hand up, like woohoo kind of
Yeah.
thing with Next Generation. Are you a Star Trek fan then?
Yeah. I love Next Generation.
Okay.
Picard is like the best. And
Yeah.
then Janeway is like awesome. I think everybody should have a Picard and Janeway because they're so freaking awesome.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, Eric, Black Swamp, founder and owner, is a big Star Trek fan, but and the kind of the rest of the team, like Jamel and Nathan, Kyle, and Junior and I, we were a little more Star Wars fans, so we'd go back and forth a little bit and kind of give Eric a hard time. But like it's about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I was like, I'll give Next Generation a chance. Like I've kind of see it here and there, and yeah, man, I think you're totally right. Like Picard is great, and just all the different characters, and then sort of how they evolve over the course of like 7 seasons or 7 years,
Yeah.
um, and then I watched, like I said, Deep Space Nine, and I really kind of enjoyed the sort of canon aspect of that, like the ongoing storyline. And wow, we
Mhm.
are totally off subject right now. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. And then Janeway. I'm in season 3 of Voyager, so I really like Janeway, the Doctor, like the holographic
Yeah, the
Doctor.
hologram
I think
is hilarious.
he's totally hilarious and funny and just well acted, and just I think it's a cool escape for me. So I appreciate it. Okay, so self-care, got it. Do something. You kids at home, do something for yourselves. Even 5 minutes a day to going for a walk or kind of focusing on that aspect is cool. So we kind of covered sort of this professional, I guess, and personal development, um, uh, acting, musical. We covered that. What else do I have here? Um, there is one thing, another kind of a page on your website. I keep referring to your website because it's awesome. I'll say it again. Go there, everybody. drummojo.com, and there's a page called the studio, and this at the bottom of the studio page is where I also saw the playlists, the general practice playlists.
Mhm.
And I guess sort of some of what we're talking about is on this, but you have different ways to, it's wow, it's a little mind bending because there is a lot of
Yeah.
information here, and just um like practicing through exploration and addressing sound versus mechanics, exploring sound, exploring mechanics. So basically sound, what you're practicing, how's it supposed to sound, and then mechanics, like sort of how are you going to achieve that, which is what I'm assuming. um
Oh yeah.
Practicing there, that was mine. My
It's
verbal
3-1.
faux pas. 3-1. Yeah, for those of you keeping score at home, thanks. um Practicing through dissection. um Again, you address details and then musicality in there. um and then fundamentals. Holy cow, yeah, like I don't even know where to start, to be honest, but like I guess I'll start like how long was the process to start putting this together, and like uh, you know what maybe led you down this path? Obviously years of practicing and mental, like your own exploration of this, the personal exploration, but then like deciding to put this all into one space and make it accessible for people. Like, can you talk about that at all?
Yeah,
I
I
know
think
that that could be a while, but go ahead.
it's funny because I've always, I think I've just always because I liked drums, I always wondered, or I was always interested in why I could do this thing but not this thing. Like,
Sure.
okay, well they say practice. Okay, well I can practice, but it's not working. So why isn't it working? Oh, the stick's not bouncing enough. Okay, so I need to make the stick bounce enough. So it's more of like I started to become conscious and aware of the questions I was asking to get us to a certain place in my technique or in my musicality or whatever. And then I was like, okay, I was asking this question to get here. Is there a better way of questioning or finding another way around it? Or is there another way of doing it? Because now I know this way. How do I play this way softer, or this way louder, or this way faster? Okay,
Yeah.
well, so I started noticing, or at least when I got better, um, I started noticing similarities between one thing that I learned and another opposite, completely random thing that I learned. Whether it be double stroke rolls are similar to triplets. Why? Oh, triplets always feel more open when I play triplets with single strokes. So if I make my doubles feel like I'm playing triplets, then my doubles will feel more open. Like making those types of connections and then
Yeah.
realizing, okay, so it feels like this because my forearm is doing this kind of thing and my fingers are love. And so I start dissecting the reasons, like the mechanical reasons of why it works, and not just, oh, it's because it feels like this. Like I wanted to get as specific as possible because just in case I lost the feeling, I wanted to still be able to execute it mechanically,
Right.
just in case. Yeah. So I think all of the questions there are a way of helping people find more ways of questioning what they're doing or know what questions to ask, because I feel like a lot of the times I was just told to relax and practice, but not how to relax.
Sure.
Of course, I was taught how to practice, but ways of practicing that would get me to where I wanted to get to in the fastest, easiest way possible.
Right. You mentioned journaling more as self-care previously. Do you sort of musically journal, like to kind of keep track of some of these ideas and thoughts? Like if you make a connection between your double rolls and your, triplet feel, like do you write that down so you can try to make a connection later or have some inspiration, down the road?
That's one thing I always was bad at in school, was taking notes,
Yeah.
because I could just recall it, or I don't know. I guess I was so good at regurgitating information that I just didn't feel the need to take notes.
Sure.
And because especially with percussion, it's so physical, like it's hard to forget what something feels like if you're really trying to notice it or be aware of it. So it wasn't until I wrote my book that I actually wrote everything down. And I was like, when I started actually writing it, I didn't realize how much I had actually stored in my memory bank.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I forgot that I knew about this, and I figured that, and then I forgot that this led to this, and this led, and I was like, whoa. So the book, when I started writing it, was more for me.
Yeah.
To recall things and remember,
Right.
don't forget this that you learned, and
Right.
don't forget that this leads to whatever. So the book is really written for me to practice,
Yeah,
and everybody else is just, have it. But the book is written for me.
Yeah.
Like, what did
Yeah,
I need to work on and remember and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, it's like a sort of you were cramming all your journal sessions into sort of
Yes.
one book. Yeah, that's funny. It's interesting. Um, uh, so sorry, I had another question I was going to ask, and I totally dropped my mind. Um, sorry, we had the playlist. I guess I was going to address um, your upcoming taps appearance, like again, like another, I guess this
Another.
is yeah, I but just more content. I guess this is what I was thinking ahead to, like your next taps appearance, which would be in kind of March and April, so after people are listening to this conversation. um your your next Sorry, I'm trying to read my own notes here. uh, uh, Stop oh boy, okay, it's 3-2 now. Stop sabotaging yourself. Common sinkholes in practice self-talk. Like sabotaging yourself, that's kind of a little topic that's popped up here and there on the podcast also. Like, can you talk a little bit how did you come up with this concept of sabotaging yourself, or avoiding sinkholes? Like, what are those sinkholes? Like, I guess people have to register for the taps for the
Yeah.
taps event to
For the
hear the
whole
whole thing. But if you can kind of give me a little precursor, that would be totally cool.
So the okay, so one big thing, there's a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with music or nothing to do with the instrument, that we either are taught to put in or insert, or we insert because of a bad experience, or because we saw something, or we assumed something. And trying to bring music and learning the instrument back to its core basics of learn the instrument to learn the instrument.
Right.
Learn doubles to learn doubles, not learn doubles with the intent of playing Wilcoxon. Learn doubles to learn how to play a double. And then when you learn how to play a double, it can apply to everything. And that's the simplicity of that, I feel, got lost when I was in college, because then in college is for learning all the stuff so you can audition and get a job. Like, yes, that is a residual effect of you learning how to play your instrument musically.
Sure.
So trying to get back to that and finding ways, or finding your habits on what prevents you of making it that simple. The fear of getting a job, or the fear of losing, or the fear of not having money in your bank. There's like all of that makes you, it's not like you're not caring. It's just, again, taking off the anxiety so that you can think clearly enough to make good decisions.
Sure.
Or you're just free to, I don't know, it just makes you a little bit more free, because I'm anxious about a lot of stuff. Like who knows when the symphony is going back to work. Like I'm a very positive person, just because
No.
it's like it's better for me to be positive, because it helps me take the first step towards things.
Sure.
Like I'm making an audition course. Like when's auditions going to be happening? Well, again, my whole audition course isn't about auditioning. It's about helping you be more musical for the sake of being musical and being clearer on your instrument.
Sure.
And at some point, if you do that consistently, somebody's going to hire you. Like, it's not like,
Right.
it's not a far-fetched thing. So I think, and again, making sure the self-talk, that you're not bashing yourself all the time because society says, oh, you have to look a certain way in order to get by in the last round. Like, no, like, or you have to win a job before 26, or it's a young person's game. Like, if anybody knows Jim Chapin, he could still play circles around people at 80. Come on, like, it's not a young, like, so just taking all of that out and just trying to get back to the simple, like, just play music. And at the end of the day, it gets into another thing, which will be a more difficult topic in that class, which is how are you accepting yourself in those moments of playing simple quarter notes? Like, oh, these have to be perfect. Like, no, play a quarter note. Like, I don't know. I'm hoping it'll be liberating for people, but I think it's gonna, at the very least, because I know next week I'm doing the whole how to be musical. And really, everybody knows how to be musical. If you ever communicated anything from hi to I need a piece of pizza, like, you can be musical. Like, you have the potential to be musical. It's just feeling free enough and feeling like your opinions matter, or just accepting the opinions you have about the piece and being okay with sharing them no matter what anybody thinks. Like, that is hard for for a lot of people, especially. Okay, but it gets into another whole thing.
No,
but come to the class.
Plug. Go to the class. Register for TAPS, because I mean, that's just one of two classes that you're teaching through TAPS, and I
totally forgot I was teaching. I was like, "What's my subject?" Ooh, Josh, why are you talking about that?
Right. Well, I mean, because I think it's important. Like, I think, like, how you mentioned you started to feel in college kind of like sidelined, and maybe this is what you're talking about, like sabotaging yourself, or these sinkholes of like, this has to be perfect, or this, I got to get my job, and everything is sort of like a means to an end. And you are saying, well, the end isn't necessarily getting your job. The end is being a better musician, or pushing yourself, or improving, like being the best musician or percussionist in person that you can be. So I think if kids, students, adults, myself included, like, can kind of take that in consideration, and not just in music either, just like in everyday life, even mundane things. Like I was talking to my pastor the other day, like, about just like kind of mundane things that I'm like, okay, every morning I get up and feed the cat, every morning I make my daughter's lunch, and every morning I brush my teeth, like. And maybe it's just the pandemic, so kind of like wearing me down, but it's like, well, I can still to try to take some joy in those things, and I like not necessarily it's not the, it's not the end all or be all of my day, but like I get to make my daughter lunch, I get to see her in the morning and talk to her
Mhm.
and make her lunch for her, stuff like that, like trying to just think a little bit differently about it. And I don't know if that's totally related, but like just
I think so.
yeah, I don't know. To like taking kind of that, it kind of takes the pressure off, like you're saying, like it kind of takes that internal kind of dialogue sometimes that I have like off, and being like, hey, not everything I do has to be like about like, whether we're gonna invoice a bunch of stuff at Black Swan Percussion, or whether the new product that we're developing is going to take off. Like it's more like, yeah, the means to an end sometimes is a little bit different. So I really appreciate you kind of addressing that. And like with, in your master classes and clinics, I think it's refreshing, or hopefully will be refreshing for kind of kids to hear, and that somebody like, what are you, 20, 26,
29,
29, okay,
finally.
yeah, like, you're young, and like, eh, I'll say it, man, you're successful, like you're just keep going up and up and up, and like you got a lot of things down, man. And just for kids to be able to hear that from you, I think will be really impressionable. So I appreciate you kind of addressing those things. So that's about all I wanted to address specifically. Like, you have anything else going on that you wanted to talk about? I mean, definitely I wanted to throw a shout out for your TAPS appearances. I mean, people, I think if they don't know how to find you online, they've been living under a rock for the last several years. So like, but obviously I'll say it's like the third or fourth time, drummojo.com is your website. And obviously, finding you on Facebook, Instagram, like your IG stuff you do is killer. And you're always got awesome content that you're putting out, and people should check it out. So anything else you want to plug or talk about before we sign off here?
Um, Apologies that the second book is taking so long. It's literal. I think it's literally the best role book that will be out when it's out. So
Okay.
it will be worth the wait. I'm basically done. My teacher told me to write uh, what do you call it, tempo ranges for all the chapters, but didn't realize that all the exercises couldn't be put under the same tempo range. So
I see.
I have to separate them all.
Right.
So that's why it's taking a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great. I can't wait to put out this audition thing, because it's, again, I think it's art. Like that's one thing. I really appreciate that now that I'm more thinking less of, let me make a book to make money. Like, no, let me just make sure this information is out for people.
Right.
Because like, I don't think anyone's really put it out there like this. And,
Right.
and I'm not like the first person to be like, yeah, relax, or the first person to be like loosening your thumb a little bit, but I'm trying to be as, specific and as accessible as possible and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So the
So
audition will be out, the book will be out at some point this year. It'll be out this year, hopefully in the spring, knock on wood. What you were going to say?
so these are two separate book projects then? Like, you have a technique book, and then I know you have I wasn't going to totally touch on this because this could probably be another whole podcast episode, but you have again on your website, like a whole audition like page. Is that what a future book is concentrated on
Yeah.
also?
Yeah, so something I wanted to make sure was on the page or the website was how I audition in a general sense.
Right.
Because that whole page is exactly how I auditioned for the last 4 finals. I was at 4: Montreal, right, Calgary, Kansas City, Detroit. I'm forgetting one. Well, 4. Let's just say 4. Yeah. The 4 finals. That's exactly what I did. Without all the details that'll be in the other book. So I just wanted to make sure that was accessible for people, because there's a lot of, like, how do they do it? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want there to be any mystery, because everybody does the same thing, basically. Yeah. There's not there's nothing really different. It's just finding your own way of getting your own style to do the thing.
Right.
But yeah, that'll be a separate thing. It's super deep. I can't believe how detailed it is, because it's literally everything I ever tried or did to find my own little thing. And the way I audition, I would not suggest to people, because it's so, you have to have so many things already in your bag to do what I do. Like this audition, the Kansas City audition, I did not practice tambourine, cymbals, bass drum. Yeah, I didn't practice those things.
Jeez.
At all. I was just like, it's a Carnival Overture. I'll play it when I get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm scrolling through, I mean, again, people, drummojo.com/auditioning, and there's just a ton of information in here. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Like the very first video looks like an acting lesson.
Yes.
And so I was going to ask you, like on one of our first topics about acting musical, like I didn't want to like totally relate like acting with like performing acting with like like actually like being musical, but is there some type of like correlation between, like in your mind, between like performing and being musical?
Oh yeah.
Sort of that acting kind of theater concept.
Yeah, if everybody checks out that video, please follow Anthony Mindell. I won't say he's a good friend, because we actually haven't met, but we've chatted a couple of times on IG,
Yeah.
which I'm super honored. But yeah, like the way, if you ever see the best actors, something that they would say is, if we see you acting, you're doing it wrong.
Sure.
Like we shouldn't be able to tell that you're just regurgitating lines from a script. Like it has to look real or feel. And the only way
in Star Trek, there's a lot of those people.
Yeah,
like but then there's some really good actors. So, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so it's finding, and another thing that I would say is, you're not trying to become a character. You're trying to find the character within you and bring it out.
Sure.
Instead of trying to like manufacture, oh, this character acts more pompous, so a pompous is, I will stretch out my chest and do this and act more like royalty, and then I will be pompous. Like, right. What is pompous in Josh land? Well, I haven't really been pompous, so what would that feel like? Okay, well, I feel like I'd be a little bit more arrogant and kind of passive and just kind of like, yeah, whatever. So that's pompous for Josh, like just really like, and whatever, kind of thing. But my version of pompous isn't the same as Tim Church's version of pompous. So it's always individual, right. And being open and vulnerable enough to experience those emotions and let them just be out, really is the way that I try to be the most musical. And it's super vulnerable, because every single performance is going to be different sometimes. Like I'm the premiere for the Vivaldi concerto is happening next week. And the way I started playing it, the first recording session is completely different than the second recording section, because I was more nervous in the first one. Yeah. The second one was more excited and had a lot more ideas. I did a lot more, frilly things in the second recording. And I was like, where did this come from? Huh. Because I'm just letting it be what it wants to be instead of trying to make it a thing. And I think with acting, it's really important to know the script, and the script is just a guideline. You're not trying to make marks. You're trying to get the point across that this person is sad. You don't need to like be sobbing to do that. It could just be a sulking kind of like, it doesn't have to be, man, I'm so sad. Like, no, right. it could be as
more subtle.
Or as subtle as a pause,
right,
in between some, like that. That's all you need. Like, Okay.
No, I think it's really
I
interesting.
love
that,
it.
Yeah, no, that correlation between um, performing and acting in theater. Um, uh, I had a conversation with, oh no, I'm drawing a blank on his name. He's in Chicago, and he's one of our concert artists and freelance percussionist, and he's involved at Second City, like the comedy and theater group. And yeah, so we had some like totally cool conversation about like some similar ideas and concepts. So I'm glad we were sort of able to touch on it. I feel like it could be a whole nother podcast conversation in the future. So um I'd be down with talking again sometime, man, even in the next couple months, and kind of revisiting some of these ideas.
Oh, I would. I feel like more people need to talk about this because
Yeah.
I don't really see anybody talking about this other than people in acting or other things like that, or theater, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Um well, again, people know where to find you. And sorry, I just remembered Andrew Baldwin is like the
Ah,
yeah guy's name in Chicago. He's also one of our artists. So yes, go back and listen to Andrew's podcast if you kind of want to hear us talk about his activities in like theater and comedy and how he connects that to performing and stuff like that. So um yeah, man, but it's good to see you. We last time we saw each other was PASIC, I think last year. So
yeah,
obviously that was off the table, but uh, yeah, I'm happy to see you and happy to hear things are going well for you. Obviously, new job, new wife, and lots of stuff going on. So congratulations and thanks for the conversation, man.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure, man. It's just good seeing you.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, all the best. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, man.
This has been a BSP production, recorded and produced out of the Black Swamp Percussion Facilities in Zeeland, Michigan. Audio and production assistance by Nathan Coles. Intro and outro music by Adam Hopper. Music sprinkled throughout the episode featured performances by Josh Jones, minus Take On Me by Aha. Visit the show notes for this episode to follow links to video of Josh in action.